Hello, welcome to the student walkthrough video for Paper 2, the British Depth Study, questions 3 and 4. In this video, we are going to be focusing on questions 3 and 4, looking at how the question is constructed, how to answer the question, and tips on what makes a good answer. We have other videos available which will guide you through this paper as a whole. And there are also videos so that you can work through each question in detail. Questions 3 and 4 will ask you to evaluate a statement about history. The statement could focus on change and/or continuity, causation, consequence, and significance. It is worth 16 marks. Remember that you have a choice on this question. You can answer question 3 or 4. So read both questions and choose carefully. We advise that you spend 25 minutes answering this question. And within that, include up to 2 minutes for thinking and planning time. If you have extra time, we advise that you use 31.5 minutes to answer this question. Using knowledge in addition to the stimulus points can help you to achieve a higher mark. You do need to reach a judgment. This can be done in an introduction or conclusion. You must explain your judgment, explain your criteria, or weigh your evidence. So let's have a look at this question today. It's a question from the early Elizabethan England paper. The most significant challenge to Elizabeth I's religious settlement in the years 1558 to 68 came from English Catholics. How far do you agree? Explain your answer. First of all, you should look for the focus of the question. What do you need to explain? In this case, we've underlined it in red for you. You are explaining significant challenge. Then look for the history that you need to focus on. And here we have underlined this in blue for you. You are focusing on Elizabeth I's religious settlement and the challenges that she faced between the years 1558 to 68. As I say, take up to 2 minutes to plan your answer. On high mark questions, such as the judgment questions, we provide you with 2 stimulus points, and you are also instructed to use information of your own. This means you should aim to write about 3 aspects of content in your answer to be able to score highly on the question. Examiners are looking for a wide range of knowledge. However, don't worry if you are only able to write about the 2 stimulus points. Examiners will reward you for doing this. Examiners try to choose stimulus points that will be familiar to students, but don't panic if you don't recognise one of them or can't remember much about it. You don't have to use our stimulus points, and you are free to write about what you know in your answer. On this slide, we have questions from the other papers that are studied as part of the British Depth Study. The questions are constructed the same way across all papers. So have a look, if you're doing one of these papers, have a look for your question. What are you being asked to explain? And what knowledge do you need to use? Do not worry if you can't think what a stimulus point is getting at. And do not worry if you can't think of something else to add. Write about what you know. Let's return to our question from the early Elizabethan England paper. The most significant challenge to Elizabeth I's religious settlement in the years 1558 to 68 came from English Catholics. There is not one way of approaching an answer, but try to include these 3 things. Explain the challenges that came from English Catholics and others to the religious settlement. For example, connections abroad, the influence in the north, and the threat of invasion. Support your explanation with knowledge from the years 1558 to 68. For example, the recussancy fines, church services, Puritan challenges to crucifixes and vestments. And then you need to reach a judgment about whether the English Catholics pose the most significant challenge and explain. An answer that is completely one-sided has not weighed the evidence. You are asked, how far do you agree? Even if you fully agree with the statement, you should explain why the other side is not convincing. If you completely disagree with the statement, you must still consider the focus of the question, as otherwise it is just an essay on the topic, not an answer to the question. Coverage of the two sides does not need to be even, but students do need to consider the factor, the event in the statement, and the alternative views. So what will your examiner be looking for when they mark your answer to the judgment question? There's not one way of approaching a paragraph, but you should try to include these three things. A clear argument, in this case, that the most significant challenge was from English Catholics. Knowledge from the years 1558 to 68 that supports the argument. And across your answer, your examiner will be looking for three aspects of knowledge. And an explanation of why the challenge from English Catholics was significant. In this question, your examiner will also be looking for a judgment. There is not one way of approaching a judgment. You can write it in an introduction, throughout your answer, and in a conclusion. Make sure that you explain your judgment. You explain why you agree or disagree with the statement overall. So what makes a good answer? You may use words from the question to start your answer, but make sure that each paragraph begins with a direct focus on the question. Use connectives to explain the focus of the question. And use knowledge to support the explanation. Try not to just describe what you can remember. That brings us to the end of this walkthrough video. In this video, we have looked at how you should answer question 3 and 4 on paper 2, the British depth study of your GCSE History exam. We hope you have found it useful. Remember that we have videos for every question on each paper available. You can also find more information for students on our website in the course materials under Student Support.